It was a Friday afternoon, 7th period, the kind of Friday where you could practically taste the weekend. Everyone was on edge, shifting in their seats, glancing at the clock every few minutes, silently counting down the seconds until we were finally free. Spring break was just around the corner, and the air buzzed with that familiar energy of anticipation. No one wanted to be in class, and our calculus teacher, Mr. Harding, seemed to sense that. Mr. Harding wasn't like most teachers. He had this laid-back vibe that made him easy to talk to, and he knew how to keep us entertained, even when we were knee-deep in derivatives and integrals. That day, though, he must have sensed that we had mentally checked out. Instead of pushing us through more math problems, he pulled up sporkle.com on the class projector, a website full of trivia quizzes, and announced that we'd be doing a brand logo quiz together. The mood instantly lightened. A few of my classmates cheered, and soon enough, we were all calling out answers, trying to guess the names of famous brands based on their logos. I remember the exact moment when things started to go wrong. My friend Jake had just answered a question. He guessed Adidas, and we all laughed because he pronounced it wrong. And then, it happened. The speaker system crackled to life, and the voice of Mr. Porter, the dean, boomed through the classroom. But something was off. His voice, usually calm and collected, sounded panicked, almost frantic. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Teachers, initiate lockdown procedures immediately." A cold chill ran down my spine. The room fell dead silent. No one moved. No one breathed. For a moment, it was like time itself had frozen. Then, all at once, the gravity of the situation hit us, and chaos threatened to break out. But before anyone could start panicking, Mr. Harding sprang into action. "All right, everyone. To the back of the room," he said, his voice steady but tense. "Stay quiet. Stay calm." We all scrambled out of our seats, grabbing our backpacks and jackets as we hurried to the back corner of the classroom. Mr. Harding flipped off the lights and locked the door before joining us. We huddled together in the darkness, packed so tightly that I could feel the nervous tremors running through my classmates. For a few minutes, we sat there in silence, listening to the faint hum of the school's electrical systems. And then, that hum stopped. The familiar buzzing sound from the panel at the back of the room ceased abruptly, leaving us in an eerie, oppressive silence. It was a small detail, but it made everything feel that much more real. They had cut the power. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a mistake. Whatever was happening, it was serious. We exchanged uneasy glances, our eyes wide with fear. No one dared to speak. Every creak, every shuffle of feet sounded deafening in the silence. We were all straining to listen, trying to figure out what was going on. And then we heard it. A scream. It came from somewhere down the hall, a loud, blood-curdling scream that echoed through the empty corridors. I felt my heart stop. A few seconds later, we heard footsteps. Heavy, erratic footsteps, accompanied by more screaming. The voice was deep, rough, and filled with rage. Whoever it was, they were getting closer. I glanced over at Mr. Harding. His face was pale, and I could see the fear in his eyes. But he held a finger to his lips, signaling for us to stay quiet. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and then we heard something else, a loud, metallic banging. It sounded like the person was hitting the lockers, slamming them with their fists, or maybe something worse. "I'll kill all of you," the voice screamed. Two of the girls in our class started crying. Their quiet sobs filled the air, making the rest of us even more terrified. My hands were shaking so badly that I had to clench them into fists to keep them still. The banging continued, growing louder and more frantic. And then, to our horror, it stopped at our door. For a moment, there was silence. And then, bang! Whoever it was had started pounding on our classroom door, screaming at us to open up. Open the door, or I'll break it down." One of the crying girls let out a small, terrified whimper, and the pounding grew even more violent. It felt like the door could give way at any second. I was so scared I could barely breathe. We sat there, frozen, waiting for the inevitable. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, the banging stopped. The footsteps moved away, and the voice grew fainter as the man continued down the hallway, screaming incoherently. We stayed huddled in the corner for what felt like an eternity. Every second stretched on, and my mind was racing with all the worst-case scenarios. Was he coming back? Was he armed? What if he broke into another classroom? Eventually, after what must have been about 10 minutes, though it felt more like 10 hours, the